Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we're bringing you day 239 of the war in Ukraine with Alexei Arestovich, advisor to the Office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel, and Mark Feygin, Russian opposition politician. They'll be discussing the usual situation on the front and the prospects of continuous support to Ukraine. Without further ado, day 239. Enjoy. Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feygin Live. It is Thursday, October 20th, 3 minutes past 10 in Kiev, and we are starting our usual stream, day 239 with Alexei Arestovich. Glad to see you, Alexei. Likewise, we have over 160,000 people watching us live. About a third of you click the like button. Please, when you join, do not forget to click that button right away. And if you have not subscribed, make sure you've done that. Of course, if you have anybody who is at risk of being mobilized, make sure to forward that stream to these people so they can at least understand the situation and see what happens on the front. Subscribe to my channel, to Alexei Aristovich's channel, and to the Privateer Station if you are listening or watching that in English. Okay, let's start with a review of what's going on the front. Here is the map. There are some interesting things unfolding, right? Yes, there are some things to talk about. Some evil enemies' tongues are talking about possible aggregation of Russian troops near Bahmut, and that they will run at the front, and it's a final countdown, and they'll overrun Ukrainian front. They're giddily jumping, and they seriously want to disprove Arestovich, who said that after Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, not a single more important town will be captured in Ukraine. So they gathered a group to try to disprove that. How many of battalion tactical groups are there? About 10. We counted about 10, and we are also aware of their moves and machinations, so we definitely have a counter plan to see how far can they go and what can we do to stop them. So, yeah, they do. I guess they are going to try to fulfill Putin's promises about capturing Donetsk region. In all of the other places, same headbutting at the line near Svatova, no progress for either of the sides. In Zaporozhye, it's same, stable, rather quiet compared to the other parts. In Kherson, they're withdrawing some of their troops. Somewhat torn and tired, airborne troops are being withdrawn, and mobilized are being thrown at instead of their position. Mostly they are changing the second line in Kherson, but they're still adding more people to the front. Of course, they are attacking us with their mopeds and missiles, shelling us with that. We are shooting them down. They are suffering under our HIMARS, and they have no way of shooting that down. So here is what's unfolding. So there is some words from Moscow appearing in the media about leaving or not the Kherson, the right bank of the river in Kherson region, and dam or not dam. And I got a message from the workers on Kherson dam who are saying that the consequences will be much worse if they actually blow it up, and the water level will be higher. So, are there more signs that they do want to leave the right bank? Because many things are indicating towards that decision. However, we're not ready to believe that they are going to leave the right bank without a fight. I don't think, Mark, we're in a position when we can effectively predict their exact decision process. We just observed for now. We heard that they evacuated about 15,000 people, mostly collaborators and their FSB people, and so-called administration of so-called annexed region. So you think they're leaving, and how will they supply that group? Well, supply to that group, they're leaving. Some of their command is leaving, but the group is still being reinforced. They're throwing more mobilized people there, and with the winter coming, they will definitely need more supplies. They'll need to heat them, to feed them. They'll still need ammo and other military kind of supplies. So it is interesting. We can state that they are regrouping there, and we're not exactly sure the goals or the reasons for that. So, okay, let's jump to the northern border now, border of Belarus and Ukraine. I understand that was the representative of General Command who stated that situation is heating up, that the probability of offensive from the north increases. Well, he didn't say times worse, and he didn't say hotter. These are media terms. He said the probability is increasing. Is it 5% more or 90% more? He did not clarify. So at the moment, it's not increasing to a substantial degree. There is definitely mobilization happening there, and they're throwing some Russian troops to the northern border. They're still, however, pretty far from aggregating a strong enough group to following with any offensive. They're pretty far away from that. So today we've seen Gomel airport, which is pretty close to the border. My ancestors are basically from that area, by the way, from Novobelitsa. My mom is Russian, my father is Jew. And the video was showing that they're reinforcing airport, they are putting some protection, anti-air defenses, they're refreshing the runway. So it does look like they're preparing that airport for further operations. Okay, Mark. So there are threats, and then there is preparations to threats. We are pretty far away from threats from that stage, but they are definitely preparing to be able to threat. Yeah, they probably looking at 9,000 troops, 9,000 Russian troops there already. And do you think 9,000 is enough to start anything? No, 9,000 is a change. Yeah, they won't do anything. They'll need at least 29 or 25,000 to do that. So the only way they could actually engage us and make sure that we do keep some group of our troops on the border, they need to exceed about 20,000 troops to even project any kind of threat there. But they can aggregate that, right? Well, yeah, they can, and they are trying. We are also aggregating our troops. And today they did mention, funny, in their news that they want to cut the supply routes of the Western weapons, trying to pour into Ukraine on the western border. Well, problem is that, first of all, the routes that are being used for supplies are way more south than that. And if they do want to try to attack us from the north, well, welcome. We'll kill them there. We haven't done that on that border much yet. So, and also, probably farmers from Volyn, Zhytomyr, and Kiev regions would also appreciate adding Russian armor to their garages. So, frankly, where would they be attacking if they want to cut off the Western supply? Well, that's the corridor on the border with Poland. And frankly, if they do try that, they'll have about 500 killed daily, and with their 20,000 aggregated, that may last for, what, maybe 20 days to almost completely destroy their advancing capability. And our territorial defense and regular parts are already getting ready to meet the guys if they ever decide to make a stupid decision and cross the border. Okay. We have 362,000 people watching us. Almost 100,000 of you clicked the like button. We've been live for about 11 minutes. I remind to those who are just joining, you know what to do. Click the like, click the bell, subscribe if you have not done that. Okay, Zakharova, also the speaker for Russian Foreign Ministry, Minister of Foreign Affairs, was talking today. She was saying that Iran refutes any accusations of supplying drones to Russia. At the same time, right, refugiates. At the same time, representatives of America spoke today and said that they do confirm that Iran is supporting Putin's regime with drones, and actually we already have some Iranian operators on our territory. Yes, we can confirm that. John Kirby stated today that Iran is a participating side in the war in Ukraine. We know that their people exist. We hit them twice already, and the Iranians gave their lives heroically for what in Crimea? Oh, do you think they're the hired ones? I don't know, but regardless, when they sleep in the barracks at night and the missile hits it, there's not much of them left after. Yep, so here's a Russian old saying, fits Iranians here. If you call yourself a mushroom, you gotta climb into the bucket. Yep, that kind of seems fitting. The only Israel is standing solo in the corner looking at that. Do you think they'll make a decision? I think they're on the precipice of. Because Israel, frankly, is not selecting between Russia and Ukraine. Israel is making a decision between NATO and European Union and the civilized world, if we aggregate that, because there are other countries in coalition, and a very strange configuration between Iran and Russia. So here, one wrong move, and like a comic said, and one awkward move on your father. Yeah, and you're a father of very heavy unintended consequences. So we'll see. That's an interesting story, how it will unfold. We'll get back to that matter a little later. What is going on in Israel? Which forces stand for what? What's the choice there in the oncoming political events in that country? You've seen, speaking of political events, you've seen Liz Truss resigned today. Of course, our alcoholic Medvedev should have come out with a mic on the stage, and it was not just him. I don't know if they'll celebrate that, throw an orgy in the Kremlin or something funny, but Boris Johnson is leading in his ratings. They have internal ratings in the Conservative Party. And next week they will be electing a candidate for the next prime minister, for the next leader of the party, and there is a chance that he will be participating and that he might get back to that position. So something tells me that it might be an interesting move of a trolling kind to troll Kremlin and their people that one left to come back. So overall, what's the consequence to Kremlin? We know position of Liz Truss, right? We know her position. In November, United States have their elections. In the lower chamber, in the Congress, Republicans are likely to take majority. Israel is facing elections. Italy just had their elections, and the winner of the right-wing party won. But she did say that. By the way, she looks rather sexy to my taste, but she did say that they're still going to continue with the North Atlantic line. Yeah, but they didn't take too much. They took probably 8% overall. Yeah, they did. But still, Moscow is appealing to that map and saying that political situation in the world is changing, but Putin is forever. You guys are temporary. Our regime is forever. How do you think that situation with changes and votes in the world can affect the situation with treating Putin's regime? Mark, the fact that there are many elections going on, it does open a window for speculation that it may change. But the thing is that the sooner any of these politicians take their positions and they stop talking the election campaign slogans, and the intel community starts giving them reports and situation from the front and perspectives. That is when they usually switch to the world of real politics and start making decisions. And that's why in Italy they also said, regardless of who wins, we continue to support Ukraine. France, in the meantime, is not just supporting us, they're actually increasing the support. They're adding additional 100 million euros to support Ukraine, they're training our troops. So there is a world consensus, and it is said that Ukraine will lead this war to fruition, to the victory, in the way that Ukraine sees its victory. This is the current formula for the result of this war. And the victory is what Ukraine will consider to be a victory, not what will be forced onto Ukraine by anybody else as a victory. So Putin is trying to throw hundreds and thousands of bodies of their soldiers to the front line to just push the media situation, to perhaps create a more favorable negotiating position. And remember, they actually are tracking our conversations. So when we talked about the Syrian drones being somewhat serious, they were sucking on this subject for several days. And it does remind me of the last days in Hitler bunker, as they are portrayed in the movies, when they're sitting there expecting a little more, and Vank's army will show up and change it. A little more, and some Iranian weapons will change the situation on the front. Oh, Berlusconi said something about Zelensky being, about that war being somewhat his fault. So that thing will change the flow of the war. We are winning. So I understand when cab drivers are behaving like that, or when you're leader of a big country who pretended to be a third pole in the multipolar world on par with US and China, and today they're buying UAVs, mopeds from Iran, hoping to change something on the front. We can deduce that their position is not too good. And we talked about that there are different factors in how people see that, between how the war is going, between how the information support to the war is going, and how is media working. Their media is always working on the push. They need to throw something with 3 exclamation points, and that's what we're often being faced with. They cut us into interesting quotes, and then they discuss that and say, hey, Ukraine is in trouble. War doesn't go like that. War happens more in line with long-term planning, with taking certain positions, with being stubborn in holding them and holding your values. You know, they A good example with Musk. There was hype up to to the skies of his statement about Starlink and stuff, that this war is pretty much lost for Ukraine. And then, a few days later, he comes back and pedals back and says, no, okay, we'll continue supporting, everything will be fine. And they continue hawking on everything they can. They're still looking at everything. Republican Party member said this. Somebody in French Parliament said this. These things do not really affect the flow of the war. Even if conservatives, for example, lose their majority that they're keeping in Britain for 12 years, and instead of them, they'll be laborists. Regardless of that, the interests of Britain are still lying in the field of Ukraine victory over Russian offensive, because these events define foreign politics of the country. It is about a lot of different things there. So it's a bigger milestone, bigger value, regardless of the party in power. Do they have current economic troubles? Of course they do. The currency is a bit down, the inflation is up, some percent increase is observed in different groups of goods, costs, and yeah, people do want to change that. People do try to change that situation economically, but the West is very fluid. The West is eager to adapt. The situation with Churchill after the Second World War tells the story of this, that the West is fluid. Another thing is, yeah, people in the West facing the oncoming winter, they move to other countries. They move down to Turkey, they move down to the south to spend less on heating this winter. And they are mobile. And if situation changes, they'll be glad to move back. In Russia, they're playing that, oh, that's a win for Putin's regime. It is normal situation for many places in the West. There, people are mobile. If they can remote, if they can telework, they will telework. They're new nomads in a way. They travel around the world and they can work. Many of them can work even from Thailand on their computer. Not a big deal. Russian media propaganda is spinning that as the West is being destroyed. The West is suffering, and we have almost won this war. So they're lying about the consequences. They're lying about the scope, the size of it. Regardless of the current change in the political climate on the West, the support to Ukraine will not cease or flutter. Even in United States, if the parties change power, they likely will produce a more detailed budget. They'll look in more details and re-verify what is going where, and perhaps it's a good thing to do. And it is also aimed mostly at the internal audience in United States. It is probably more about the procedural flow and procedural situation in Congress and how these support actions are being taken, than it has to any real support to Ukraine. And yeah, their long-term enemy Iran is now joining the fight, and of course the West will withdraw, right? And then they'll withdraw even more if, let's say, North Korea joins in some capacity. So these talks are not serious. Support will stay. And by the way, have you seen the projections of what is going to be ordered on the new order for American military complex? Just ATACMS, 2,000 of those, 700 of HIMARS systems. I seriously doubt that all that will go just to American Army. Well, yeah, I think all over the world people are looking to buy HIMARS. They had a real good advertising on this front. And we are also not going to stay and watch. I think we'll partake in this order as well. Today we've seen a picture that Putin visited some military training area in Ryazan region and talked with Shoigu. Correct me if anybody's seen otherwise. I went to Kremlin.ru website. I haven't seen any pictures there. I've seen one. One was published. He's laying under some canopy and shooting from a sniper rifle. Who, Putin? I haven't seen that one. Somebody who looks like Putin from the back. Oh yeah, like you say, his sixth copy is in work, right? Exactly. Well, yeah, of course, if he visited that, there were definitely his bodyguards around him. That's not. That's the way he does these public appearances. That's his public. But it was mentioned in the statement as well that he's going to exercise more control over mobilization. So, in this relation, there is a question: why does he need to dive deeper into that matter? If the number of dead bodies will be increasing, and I'm already seeing that, it's more difficult to hide that. These numbers are difficult to hide than professional troops. So I can give you an example. In one of the areas near Simferopol, 400 people left. 7 of them are already reported dead. So just a week and a half, and they lost. This is huge losses. So roughly 1.5% in the first couple of weeks. And by the way, according to all military canons, 30% loss is making any detachment not ready to fight. So, or weakening it to a degree that it needs to be rotated. So yeah, and they haven't really even fought the enemy yet. They probably were just hit by our artillery on the way to the front. Well, yeah, that whole topic of mobilization is stinking. It's like radioactive. And one of the generals in Russia, Birulov, mentioned that when answering the question, would women be recruited as a part of that mobilization, especially the ones that have no families or no children? No, we're not mobilizing women. Only the ones who are eligible on some medical positions will be. Otherwise, no, we're not. So this is the general's position on the mobilization, and Putin somehow still dives into that topic. You'd think he would want to be away from mobilization, but he isn't. Regardless, he is still pretty close to the matter. Well, so he promised to deal with it, and the bodies are still coming. Basically, then there'll be some punishment, and he will be punishing some of his ministers, because it will be them who failed to deal with issues. Because every year they need to feed at least 2 generals to the bloodthirsty machine, showing that things failed. If you read Speer's memoirs, he mentioned that one of the Hitler's problems was that Roosevelt and Churchill could afford to treat their people much harder than Hitler ever could. Because some people think that totalitarian machine is always a ruthless system that abuses people. The other side is that of that equation is that in reality, very often it has its own population, actually in a special relation with the leader, because this is the population that the leader is relying on the support to a big degree. He needs to be supported and loved in order to do all these shenanigans. Because Speer is mentioning that America and UK, they worked 2 shifts, they took away the holidays in some cases from their workers, they had 3 shifts, night shifts, and Hitler was working in his people in only 1 shift till 44, and the 3rd shift was not introduced until 1945, because he was promising his people that they'll be eating Swiss cheese and drinking French wine. He was not going to rule the country on the premise that he'll make them suffer. And Putin, I don't think Putin can afford to go too far with disappointing his population as well. We'll see, that's an interesting note. Okay, another question we did want to touch today about the drones. I heard that Ukraine has its own works. There are some rumors that you have some things on the warehouses. Some people are hyping, I'm not quite sure on what. But in general, Ukrainian defense systems, how capable are they? Ukrainian defense industrial complex, can they build their own? Maybe license somebody else's model? Perhaps getting a similar tool to what the Russian side is using on the front? Let's say that. People in the know, or people who call themselves in the know, told me that with the first frost, we'll see something remarkable, something so drastically remarkable. It will be Ukraine made in significant quantities that everybody will be impressed. And I asked them, okay, can I say out loud that this is what's happening? And they confirmed, yes, you can. Okay, so here I am telling you that I got these promises, and let's see what do they bring to the table when the first days of winter come. I can say that our defense industry is not sleeping, right? But industries of other countries are not sleeping too. And I'm suspecting that we will have a weapon that flies at least on par with the Iranian stuff and what Russians are using. I did mention that before, that weapons are usually carrying different functions. They're not tools to destroy and kill. They're also weapons to prevent any conflict, to prevent any bloody conflict. Because when the other side sees what you have and you see that, it's less than 1,000 miles here to Moscow. So if we'll be using Iranian drones in perpetuity, all of a sudden they can start blowing things up near Moscow. Well, Mark, we are not attacking Russian territory officially. So if things start happening, like in Belgorod region, then we'll just say that it's a safety disease that starts spreading from Belgorod and Kursk regions to other ones. So this cannot be excluded, right? Well, we bear no responsibility for what's going on in the territory of Russian Federation. It's the purview of Russian government. All right. Today, President Zelensky answering a question said that I'm not sure. I have no data. This was not us. We are not taking responsibility for the Crimean Bridge about that explosion. So he took the official position and he denies any Ukrainian involvement in that explosion. Well, from the beginning, we were saying that this is a strange story. It is much more likely that FSB or GRU in the fight between these agencies in Russia than Ukraine did that. Wonderful. Okay, then the next question. We've been talking for so long. We've been live for 32 minutes almost. 460,000 watching us. So the question of the weapons support, those ATACMS systems, do you think it will evolve in the near future? Are we waiting for that? I don't think, Mark, that we're going to see some huge changes or drastic changes in that supply. I think it'll be a planned work, and the things that they promised to deliver will be delivered on time in batches that were promised and they signed up for. If anything happens, they might just expedite the deliveries. It'll be the same volume, but they might just expedite the time frame. Perhaps on occasion, things like anti-drone systems will add a bit of a splash on the radar, saying, hey, in a week, these systems are here. But the West in general gave us new billions of monetary support after the first attacks of Iranian drones, and they're now also expanding training services. Canada, France, Germany, many countries are partaking in that. So if the West all invests in preparing our military, we'll have a very different quality of our infantry on the field. That will have immediate results on the field, as these newly trained people will get there. And there'll be the abyss between the mobilized people in Russia and the trained infantry in Ukraine will only increase. And I'm just seeing another news from states that Congress is going to take a $50 billion support measure for Ukraine for next year. That should be enough for the next year support. So initially it was 42, we spent 18 already. So even from the current ones, they they used about 20 billion the first year, and then the next year will be 30. So it's more than enough for us. The first year, the hardest year, we spent just 18. So even if we imagine the party changes in Congress, they might likely take a better control of how the money are spent, what is included there, but it won't likely stifle support to Ukraine. There will be different statements by politicians, of course, so that Russian media can swing it in any way they want, but that's politics. Right words need to be said, especially in lieu of looming elections. Okay, we've been live for about 36 minutes. I think it's good for Thursday, and we'll continue tomorrow. You're on schedule tomorrow, right? Yes, Friday, Saturday, everything is on track. Sunday, I'll have a day off. Okay, so we'll do streams and maybe a little longer. We'll see about the news, what's happening. We'll have more things to discuss. One more ask to our viewers, please do not forget to share links to that stream in your social media, in the forums where you talk. Click the like button, click the bell, and of course subscribe to Feygin Live, to Alexei Arestovich, and to the Privateer Station if you are watching that in English. Exactly like that. Okay, see you tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody.
Всем пока.